Sup Shredders, my name is Logan aka Spiderhands and welcome to an SP Reviews where today we host ourselves an EP from an act named Chill Guru Beats titled Dreamscape EDM Project Vol1. And if we switch over to here, I have reviewed music from Chill Guru Beats before. I remember reviewing a previous EP of theirs titled Elements and I had a great time with it, so we're going to listen through the 5 tracks within this EP from start till finish and we're going to hear what we think. Starting with Luna, let's go. What do we got? Guitars. Just before we continue, I should also note this features Nicholas R as the composer as well as Chill Guru Beats being the main artist. Oh, fantastic transition to the drum parts. It's just a phenomenally played guitar part on the nylons, I suppose, classical. Flamenco? There's such an intricacy as well to the percussion, such an interesting arrangement of different 8th and 16th note visions on the kicks, the cymbals, and the snares and such. And the whooshes just for a bit of stillness there is gorgeous. I just think it's just a tremendous track, Luna, with the guitars there, the shakers and tambourines and the drum beats and I suppose the bass as well. There's a really neat combination of elements in here that give that kind of like Latin American kind of flamenco flair with the fingerstyle guitar there, the main line arpeggiating between 3 or 4 chords in the harp for the most part. When things get a bit quieter, you've got this extra lead on that kind of harmonizes. In fact, there's an extra guitar lead for most of it. There's a nice extra voice on the sides there. But ultimately, I think the main motif and main riff from the guitar itself is compelling enough. There's an intricacy to it. There's a great sort of fluency to how it was played. And it's very tight. But I just appreciate how we allow things to be a bit more airy and wistful sometimes in the parts around the bass and the drums and stuff like that. I think structurally that's really cool. For an instrumental track at 3 minutes, it's really well fleshed out. You can kind of imagine how you might put vocals on top of it or something like that, but it also stands very well on its own. I think that you got a situation where the production is tight, things are nice and clear in the mix, neatly leveled, nicely surrounding you in the stereo field there in the headphones. It's great, and the bass, the drums are relatively low key and subdued. We're not trying to make them too sort of punchy or raucous. They're enough to keep a sense of flow with the kicks, whilst also articulating things in the mid to high range neatly. With again the shakers there, with a great tone to them. Things were captured really well there. The samples are really well recorded. Either way, phenomenal work on that front. Just great textures and sort of sounds to them. Ultimately, I think just with any sort of bass lines reinforcing the root notes, you've got a track there which has variety within its composition, is really well presented, and it's just a very sort of chill. You can imagine it being played at night time with Luna being moon, right? It's gorgeous and invokes this really vivid imagery in your mind. So well done for the first track. But we've got Nebula now, track number 2. Oh, natural harmonics. And synth pads around the headphones, nice. Well, that sequence is sick, man. Oh, I was not expecting that. I'm kind of blown away by the way that we had not only that really sick sort of almost quick house, fast house, just kind of be their dance track to do with the percussion with a really sort of like really pokey but like palatable drum line there with the notched, the melodic cymbal hit or that kind of stab there. It was nice how it was phrased rhythmically. It was really interesting. It had a sort of sense of sassiness to it and niched with the existing elements really well. Oh, pianos as well, right? That is piano, right? There's some stabs or some staccatos on the keys. And raising to the range there for a bit of airiness. Ah, fantastic use of the pad there to continue to develop. Have we double tracked the guitars? Or are there different takes on either side to contrast a bit? So we're kind of like, there's like two sides to it. We've got an established guitar motif there, and we're having the synths flutter around the sides. With that bass line, the drums coming in to kick things up a notch in several sections. Just realized I have this selected up here for some reason. No, it's tight. Really well handled. I think that Nebula, if I think about like the way it sounds, the intro motif, almost like the synth pads are ascending to the sky, like we're looking up at the stars. So I think that's kind of dope. It's another instrumental track that consists of guitars, some synthy pads there to sort of contrast layer-wise to the previous track that offers some new sort of slightly different aesthetic to it. It does sound like space, right? You can kind of imagine that synth part there, almost like, again, that ascension around the stereo field there, helping you to sort of like rise up there. The guitar is keeping things relatively grounded in the mid-range there. Without the drums and bass in there, it's like we have this, like things are floating, if that makes sense. There's reverb tails and stuff there. There's very little low end, but the kick and the bass when they come in are quick and they kind of make you think that you're moving forward and at a space. And I think the grooviness again of that pitched sort of cymbal stabby bit there, in addition to that, kind of makes it a bit more interesting because of that extra unexpected texture there. Like they could have probably just gotten away with like hi-hats and kicks and snares. But to put an extra effort in to sort of make it, the drum kit harmonize a bit with the existing layer and chord progressions and stuff is really dope. Especially with the different rhythmic phrasing they had there, variations on each of the tails, it was really cool. I think, again, the leveling was fantastic. We had a natural sort of like peak and trough system there with quite a bit throughout the bass and drums, and clearly they came up when they were there, they hit hard. It was a little bit heavier sounding than Luna, but I think that that's important in an EP to show you can do different types of EDM, but it's also very dreamy. It kind of makes you feel it's very soothing, even whilst it's like got a relative intensity with some of the individual components. So, but yeah. No, it's a solid song. Just as a final comment, I think that the flamenco attack, like the classical stuff, as well as the keys there, being a sort of lower key and extensions with the harmonies and stuff like that, adds a bit of sort of emotional, sort of like adds a bit of sort of emotional complexity to it to kind of make you think like you saw, it's almost sort of like philosophizing the situation. But we've got Nimbus, track number 3 for today. That's kind of dope. It's a 2-minute track as well, which is, you know, it's quite short. Get some hand drums in there as a lower layer on the sides. And again, we've got a relative sort of predictability with the way these tracks are arranged now. Not in a way that's detrimental. You can kind of expect that there will be like quite a guitar part, even if it's a different tone of guitar. I think these are like more electric guitars now with the tiniest bit of crisp to it, but mostly clean. But you know, slightly different drum kit, different almost kind of Moogish square wave bass. I suppose claps, actually, for the snares. And of course, risers to indicate a change in scene. It's fascinating how the guitar is going backwards and forwards in the stereo field. They're really trying to surround you in this music and make you feel like you're in the middle of it. And And we got that riser at the end there. Sorry, just go straight into the next track. I don't particularly mind that it goes straight into the next track because it's implying that we're trying to move the listener through the different shades that we're showcasing within our music, our output. But Nimbus, it has this movement which is kind of cool with a more kind of a more electric sounding guitar tone there with a bit more sort of body to it, intermingled with some kind of unusual sort of square wave, sort of like pitched synths basses with the drums as well, being kind of a mixture of the intensity of Luna and Nebula with some occasional risers. And it's kind of like this track, I think we were trying to sort of squeeze the drops more in together to create a shorter form track, maybe just for experimentation purposes. I think that there's enough going on again with the shakers, the instrumental layers, with like, the additional percussion and such. There's variety within individual instrument performances. It feels like things are a bit more simplistic with the guitar tone for the sake of more making a sort of a low-key dance track, and I don't mind that so much. There were some parts where Nebula where we sort of fleshed things out and had things in a higher range between guitar pitches, but here I think it works for a short form. We show that we can do really sort of seamless transitions there. The leveling and stuff is tight. The panning of different things, like different guitar parts between the parts of the stereo field, is sick. The choice of notes there was cherry, whilst also not being too over the top. Or there might have been some modes invoked in there with the passages. And yeah, ultimately, it's another banger, man. Like it's like these are relaxed tunes which aren't too sort of like intense, so you can sit there and nod your head to it and enjoy it. I think that's an interesting direction for EDM Project, but then to be fair, not in a bad way, I think that's cool, but this is, of course, the Dreamscape EDM Project, so it suits there. Lots of reverb tails and lots of mistiness there. It's good. We got Horizon, track number 4. More pads and picked nylons? Or is that a mellotron? Right. Nimbus had the hand drums, and I appreciate the hand drums there. That kind of more organic, earthy tone. It kind of makes you feel like you're listening to a track where people are actually playing their instruments there. It adds a sense of humanity to it in a weird way. That can sometimes be a thing with electronic music where if it sounds a little bit too sort of digital and synthetic, it can put people off just because they're used to like quote unquote real music, right? But if you can combine more sort of analog elements there where people can imagine people like playing it live, it can be just a bit more sort of like accessible to certain audiences. Hell of a pulse to those kicks though. Not in a bad way. Nice extra layer in those guitars. That there with the riser and the switch up and the strumming of it going to those triplets was just a really neat way to sort of segment. You have an adjustment to the rhythmic phrasing there. It causes the listener to take attention, insinuates that we're about to have an abrupt sort of like phase shift. If we go back to it, it's just a nice fake out. Very clever. and switching back to the more sort of like energetic fingerstyle patterns. No, I agree with a lot of the decisions that were made here. I think the horizon, it does kind of sound like the sun is rising a little bit with those whoosh, the kind of the horizon near the end, right? I think that when you use something to sort of ascend like that, it does invoke a feeling of things going up musically. So that's cool, much like I talked about Nebula with the synths going around the stereo field and such. This track was pretty. We had almost a mellotronish kind of synth going on with the acoustic leads there. We had a bit more body in those heavier sections there to match the drums and bass, which I'm really happy about there. I think that we had some interesting harmonies there that sounded very pretty and chirpy there. A lot of this music is intrinsically gorgeous through the use of the intervals and the note choices and the progressions. I think that we understood again, with that triplet phrasing, the alternate sort of measure of the strumming stuff just before that last third there was good, because I think we were aware that it had quite a bit of the same thing, and so we were trying to make it sound a bit fresher, which was good. None of these tracks overstay their welcome. I think that we are aware of that, and I like that. I think that's just experience and just, craftsmanship. With that sense of diversity within the composition, as well as just, again, continuous amounts of tight production quality. I just think these are 4 tracks really that so far have really nailed it in terms of all the fundamentals. And it makes me feel really confident for track number 5, which is Infinity. That's just an interesting melody off the bat. And you have chorus pads, wire pads in the background. Oh. We haven't really had vocals at this point, have we? Is this the output there? Are we indicating there'll be more vocals to come? We really wanted the Latin American flamenco style classical guitar playing, didn't we? Again, like when you have that motif by itself, it's interesting enough, and part of why I think it's so effective on its own after the sound of the previous part ending is that you just had things be full bore for a little bit relative to its intensity, which is not. It's not like we're listening to like the most hardcore kind of dubstep or like you know what I mean, like on a level of relative perceived intensity in musical genres, this is pretty low key. It's enjoyable and there's energy, but it's like low key energy. But I think it's just nice to have that guitar riff on its own to be able to appreciate the intricacy of it, the interesting note choices there, potentially working with either melodic harmonic minors or maybe even modal parts. And then it's fresh enough that when you come out of it, you appreciate the bass drums and everything else, as well as the hand drums and some of the offbeat parts as well. Oh yeah, man. Bop, bop. Bop, bop. Bop, bop. Bop, bop. Oh, it's so sassy, man. Yeah, fantastic, fantastic finale. Nice work having the vocals at the end there, the harmonies as opposed to the melody we had before. It's an interesting way to signal that we're finishing an EP. I like the way that things were done throughout the vast majority of this. I think that it's a track where we really, again, capitalize on a lot of the movements with, again, the hand drums, the kick snares, the guitar part, starting things off with some of the synth pads in the background, providing a nice sort of ground bed for everything to sort of come out of. I liked the fact that we were very sort of effortless with transitions between sort of like the more sort of like fours. I don't like using the word intense. They're drops and they're not drops, you know. I like that we weren't afraid to leave the guitars by themselves with their core melody there. I think again having those vocal parts there is a nice way of showing a sense of difference or maybe progression towards a larger concept within more works like that. It almost says, hey, guess what? There's more to come after this, you know. So I think that's kind of dope. I think ultimately, if I was to try and sort of figure out what they mean by infinity with this one, it's a track where you could ultimately pretty much loop it continuously and never really get sick of it. There's so much intrigue within the guitar riff, the melodies there, as well as the bass and the drum parts that you're not really left wanting there. And I think the use of the rises, whether they're slower ones or quicker ones, there is just the exact right length that we need in order to be able to like appreciate or notice change there. I'm going to talk about these tracks overall in the conclusion in a moment, so I'll see you there. Because welcome to the conclusion of my review of this EP from an act named Chill Guru Beats titled The Dreamscape EDM Project Volume 1 featuring Chill Guru Beats as the main artist and Nicholas R as the composer. Now, what do I think this EP is about? I think it's exploring music about like stars and space and horizons and taking the Lunar, Nebula, Nimbus, Horizon, and Infinity tracks more literally, I suppose. As a dreamscape, I think this EP is meant to invoke a sense of fantasy. It's meant to be like relaxing to listen to. It's meant to still be electronic music and get you dancing along to it, but not in the way where it's trying to maybe artificially poke at you and get you into a heightened state or like whatever. You know, like they're not trying to bump you up necessarily. They're just trying to get you to sort of vibe with it and sit with it and appreciate it. I think the strengths of these tracks, because all of them are between 2 and 4 minutes, the ultimate sweet spot. They're fantastic work there. Structurally, they're invigorating. They are just so, there's a variations and differences between parts there where they have this sort of main theme on the guitars usually. That's been most of it actually, to be fair. The guitar parts have been a massive staple of this, alongside the bass and drums and the occasional hand drums, as well as like the synth pads and all that. Ultimately, I think that the strength is the guitar, the different guitar ideas, how they were played out here. A lot of it being that kind of flamenco Latin American kind of classical style, playing with the finger picking and such, exploring not only major and minor triads but the extensions. I think that that's just really intricately handled. I firmly believe that the guitar parts, so they weren't just in the center stereo field or sort of like double tracked. They would go between the sides of the stereo field as well, move around the place, inviting you to partake in it. Granted, the synth pads also did that when they were there, as well as sort of being sort of more stationary in the background, but that's more of a testament, I think, to their post-production prowess and savvy than anything else there. The pads there and synth were typically in that mid-range to high, and they were sparkly and glowy and shone and were really gorgeous to listen to and were a nice sort of pairing with the guitar parts. I think that the bass lines when they came in were that was strong but not overpowering by any means. You know, they were there, you could feel and you could appreciate it, but we weren't trying to sort of like bowl people's heads in with it. I think that it was very tuneful and worked well with the root notes of the chord progressions without sort of trying to take over the presence too much. The drums being in a situation where a lot of it was either the hand drums working with different 16th note patterns there. We also, in the drop sections where we had the bass kicks and cymbals or claps instead of snares, had these interesting sort of tuned sort of cymbal or like stabby bits there where they'd often go on the ones or the ands or even the e's, ahs or whatever of the 16th note grooves there. And when you have 16th notes on the guitar and then try and pair that in the drop sections with those drum parts, you just have a really full sounding piece where when things go away, like in tracks like Lunar and Nebula and like most of the other ones, we have moments where things would kind of pause and take a breath. I think that ultimately it was very well served. It's a song. This is an EP where I can imagine if you're a singer or vocalist who could sort of take this and do something like write some lyrics for it, you could have a lot of real estate in this track because there's a lack of lead elements there. But I think that's honestly, it's more to invoke a reality and environment that they're creating rather than trying to lead you on a journey there. I think this feels just as much like a sort of a portfolio effort, and I mean that in a genuine way. Like when you release music, it's a part of your discography. You know, if we're honest, I think that it's very much like how I had a really sort of like positive time with Elements. Dreamscape EDM Project is Volume 1 is Strength to Strength, and I think that the instrumental compositions, like the themes, were typically more relaxed sounding with extensions and major minor triads there, with a wide variety of different grooves on the kit there, if not the hand drums with the actual drum kit itself, the bass line being really well behaved, ultimately serving the purpose of being sort of like magical sounding with the glow of the different guitar parts there, the reverb change making things sort of feel more kind of like again gentle, and even when like there was a bit more sort of like kind of pull to the percussion there, it was kind of a bit heavier sounding. Like I think in Horizon there's a bit of oomph in the lower end of the sub bass there. It was really good. We knew how to sort of add enough variation to keep it intriguing. The riser, since we had occasionally going up there, whether they were slower ones to initiate a sense of gradual pace or switching sections now, it was appropriate each time. And ultimately, I think we have an fundamental understanding of music theory and composition, know how to create unique, interesting themes per track. The actual performance and sort of songwriting is tight without a note out of place and no filler. Finally, the studio recording, mixing, and mastering is great. It's really well handled. I think that these 5 tracks were leveled really well. I think that they were nice and wide in the stereo field. Some music surrounded you in your headphones and also went backwards and forwards with some cool responses from the guitars. Everything was like swirling and automation of the panning from the synth pads. Things were nicely niched in the frequency spectrum. They were not the same. There were no weird sort of like resonant frequencies there. It was really professional sounding. There was dynamic range to this. Things were not the same loudness all the time, but there was, it was still quite loud. Loud enough, should I say. It was professional grade loudness without any pumping, apart from side chaining, so the bus compression limiting was handled. And effectively, this is my review of this track, this EP, should I say, from Chill Guru Beats, titled Dreamscape EDM Project Volume 1, and hopefully enjoyed it. If you did, please go show them some love via their various social medias and a Spotify page, and stay cool, stay safe, and please remember to support your local musicians and artists at this point in time, as they help more than ever through the crazy stuff going on in the world, and I will catch you in the next review. Spiderhands out.